All right. First task is parallelism. We really need to understand what parallelism is, just because it's a key part of writing. When you're writing in your essays in future times, whether it's a job interview or a college application, parallelism is a basic part of writing. And so you want to make sure that you do understand that. And then we'll look at some examples in Douglass and the Declaration of Independence. Okay. So you wrote these down last week, but just as a reminder, what is parallelism? Well, it's a sentence that's written in the same grammatical form. That means you write two halves of the sentence in the same way. Okay. Example, Sam has a pen, a pencil, and 2 books. Okay. So it's 1 pen, 1 pencil, 2 books. You have a number, and then you have an object. It's parallel because you did number and object. Okay. It doesn't necessarily have to be a number and an object. It just has to be an adjective and a noun. Okay. That's hard for students sometimes just because they don't necessarily know parts of speech. And so it makes parallelism difficult. Even if you don't know parts of speech here, you can look at that and go, Sam has a pen, pencil, and 2 books. You would need to know that you would know to put a right there, okay? Lists should always be parallel, and that's a common mistake that I've seen in your writing, is that they are not. And that is not considered a minor mistake. That is considered a major grammatical error, okay, that you should be writing in parallel structure. So make sure when you have lists that you are writing them parallel. So here's some examples. Tom is known for his honesty and original ideas. On the surface, does it seem like there's anything wrong with that? No. It's clear, it's concise. The problem is it's not parallel, and that's the mistake that you are making. So Tom is known for his honesty and originality. Okay, so you would have to change original ideas to originality. Okay. For verbs, my previous company has moved and is selling their office space. So when you do parallelism, you're right, the verbs have to match in tense. You have 2 choices. You can either do my company has moved and sold, or you can do is moving and selling. Okay? But they do have to match, and that's why parallelism is so hard, because in your mind you're looking at that and you're going, well, that makes sense to me. It has to match. Adjectives. She is charming, courteous, and a beauty. Who can tell me what's wrong with that one? Again, it doesn't matter that you necessarily know that beautiful is an adjective, but you have to be able to look at that and go, charming, courteous, a beauty. Well, it needs to be one word. Okay. All right, how do you fix parallelism? Okay. The first thing is look at your conjunctions. Okay. It needs to be parallel on each side. Swena wants both. All right, both means 2. So you know that you're going to have to look for parallelism here. A satisfying job and that pays well. It's not the same thing, is it? A satisfying job, that. So it would have to match. So you would change it to a satisfying and a well-paying. You see how parallelism works? It's not necessarily the repetition of a word, although these examples have given that to you, but it's the same form. And then lists in a series we've done. Traditional societies believe the king to be a religious, political, social, and a military head. Okay. Now this one you're thinking, wait a minute. You've got a religious right there, right? But you don't have a political, do you? But look at what the sentence is actually saying compared to the other. But do you see why the second one is parallel but not the first one? Okay. Head of the military forces is not, you've got a noun and then a prepositional phrase, whereas in the other ones it's just an adjective. When you are writing, how do you do it? When comparing elements, I like to read books over watching movies. I like reading books over watching. ING ending, having the same ending. This is a big one. This is the one you probably need to pay attention to because it's the one I've seen in your writing with the most mistakes. Anytime you have a verb is or are, both sides have to match. To succeed is thriving. That is not parallel. To succeed is to thrive. Okay. So in terms of all the ones that you've done, number 4 is really the ones that you guys are making the most mistakes with, and so it's the one you want to make sure sticks up here. If you have is or are, on both sides they have to match. Okay. All right, so let's do a little bit of practice together. And if you'll do these orally, then that's fine. Otherwise, you'll have to write them. Okay. I'll read the sentence, and then someone will raise their hand and tell me how to write it correctly. She likes reading the latest novels and to listen to music. Very good. She likes reading the latest novels and listening to music. Now you have the ing and the ing. You could make this even better by saying she likes reading. Well, no. That would be right because to music is there. So yes, very good. Okay. The next one. Jen gets her daily exercise by walking her dog, going for a bike ride, and cleaning. Let me record that part. When we look at each element, because this is a list, right? You have walking, and then what is she walking? Her dog. Element 2, going. Going with what? A bike ride, okay. And, okay, but does it say what she's cleaning? No, and that's the missing element, isn't it? So Jen gets her daily exercise. Tell me how I would fix that. You are correct. So you would have to add the missing element that makes it parallel. So going for a bike ride, cleaning her dog, so you need, or cleaning her house. I can't talk this morning. All right. The difference between rural and country living is the height of the buildings and the population. Yes, you wouldn't say 2 because the other one doesn't have a number, but by making locations plural, that definitely, you're right, that makes it much better. Okay. So you added the prepositional phrase there. Okay. That one was hard. The questions. The meaning of valuation. A lot of what this passage is about deals with that word valuation. I'll get it just a minute. Okay. So I want you to look at the word and think about what he said. And the first question on your paper is, what is the meaning of the word valuation in this passage? So he is talking about the value of people. And when he's talking about the value of people, they're talking about what are they worth. And there's different types of valuation. In this passage, what is he comparing it to in terms of valuation?
Animals, money.
Money, okay? And he's comparing it to animals, isn't he? And so the comparison is to the animals. So he's saying that the slaves have, depending on what type of slave, old, young, and so forth, is the equivalent of an animal. And that's kind of what this passage is showing us, the reader, that in the eyes of the slaveholders, slaves and animals were the same thing. It was, how much are they worth to me? Okay. Talk about a couple of them, and then we'll pair off. When we look at, okay, so what is something in the first paragraph that really stood out at you that you annotated? That is excellent. A lot of times you're looking through this and you're like, well, she said just to look for comparisons to animals, or she said to look for things in a speech. I didn't really see any one of those, but I'm going to go ahead and summarize what this paragraph was about in case I have to come back. So she did an excellent job there of actually just doing that so that she could come back and reference that. So that was very good. Okay. Anybody find anything specifically in paragraph 1? No? All right. there's, hold on. Yep, okay. There's a word that we really need to talk about before we do our assignment. And it is this right here. How many of you know what a will is? All right, tell me what a will is. That's exactly what a will is. It's a document that you make while you're alive, and it actually lists out all of your properties. And this is both land, house, but things that you own. And you would specifically say who gets what. So Aiden would get mom's ring, Riley gets grandma's ring, Tommy would get all of the baseball stuff. And you list it out, and you're very specific. If you don't have a will, then your closest relative gets everything, okay? And that's why they always say, have a will, because otherwise whoever's the closest one gets everything, whether you want them to have it or not. So when we look at the passage, it says he left no will. And so now we have to look at who he does leave it to. And then the next thing that we need to look at before we go into any further is the word valuation. Okay? I want you to read that sentence again. And I want you to see if you can come up with what he means by valuation.